So ladies and gentlemen, those that weren't part of the keynote, my name's Gavin Raison. I'm a police officer of the Queensland Police Service. I'm going to take you through a brief, very brief slide pack in relation to what we're doing with mobility within Queensland Police Service, and then Adam's going to take you through a bit longer in-depth in relation to the apps and what we're using within the Queensland Police Service. So we're going to talk about mobility and mobility in Frontline. Our mobility that we've delivered to 5,400 users is frontline orientated, what we call blue shirts. Officers who work in the field, frontline, not investigators, but frontline officers. In 2013, we introduced mobility to the Queensland Police Service. Prior to that, we were highly reliant, or 100% reliant on police radio for our communications out in the field. So we had someone else telling us the information that we needed instead of us actually getting that information directly. Sometimes we refer to it as ringing someone up and asking them to do a Google search for you and then feed that information back. Not very logical, not very efficient. Something from the 1950s that really hadn't changed. 2013, we'd made a big change. We introduced the ability for officers to query information in the field and actually push that back into our records management system. At that time, we didn't deliver all functionality. Over the last number of years, every month we've increased our functionality. And on the devices now, the officers, through the use of MobileIron and also through Apple and their Apple devices, we provide the officers access to corporate systems. So their email, their documentation through Docs at Work, their calendars, and so forth. They can also reach out to the internet and use functionality, the apps available to officers in the field that make sense to use. And we also allow them to access their service manuals and training material. And a lot of what we do in training within Queensland, which is fairly tyranny of distance, causes training to be difficult. So our OCM and training is usually via short videos. So they can play those videos through the devices as well. So it's quite powerful, the devices, in allowing the officers to see what they can and can't do operationally. Mobility, when we started out, we asked ourselves a question, and it was driven by police, not by IT. So we as officers said, as an officer, I want to. And we want to do basically the same things through all Western cultures anyway in relation to policing. We want to know, who am I dealing with? What action do I need to take once I know who I'm dealing with, I've confirmed who I'm dealing with? Improving officer safety and community safety by me knowing what risks are associated with a vehicle or a person I'm dealing with, and whether I need to take them off the street to improve officer safety and community safety is powerful to be able to confirm that information. And that's where we started from with mobility, as well as be able to enter information once. So not taking information via radio, recording it in your notebook, and then going back and rekeying that information at a later stage. Why don't, when we query that information, push it straight into our records management system? And you'll see that when you see the apps. And also reducing our reliance on police radio. So it's there for critical communications, not for mundane, run-of-the-mill communications, stuff that we shouldn't have to do via radio. Serving our community better was the overall goal, allowing us to spend more time with the community in the field and less administration time. The searching app that we've built, and we've used the terminology Q-Lite, we'd put Q in front of everything, being Queensland at the end of the day, but our primary app, our searching app's called Q-Lite, and then all the other capabilities extend off that. Our searching app allows us to search for information within Queensland in relation to persons, licenses, vehicles, and you can see up the top there, they're things of interest to us. And then we also reach out to our national systems as well. So when the officer does the search, they don't have to search multiple systems to do that, it will do that for them automatically. Our desktop solutions and our comm centres have to search two different systems. The mobile device allows them to search directly from the device itself, to the point where our comm centres actually ask officers to do the checks for them via the radio for someone else. They'll put them onto a chatter channel to do a search for an interstate vehicle or person. We've introduced a number of capabilities. In the next couple of months, we're going to actually, a big wave of new capabilities going to come to the officers where they can push information back, and we're going to have big savings. At the moment, we're having about 30 minutes per officer per shift as a minimum saving with the apps that we have in place and the ability to be able to query that information. Some of the apps that we've built at this point in time are a street check app, which we do about 52,000 of a month within Queensland. And that's just recording a person, a place, and a vehicle at a particular point in time. So it's capturing intelligence information. Roadside drug testing is an app that we've got that saves about 30 minutes per officer per shift. It's just recording that you've done a roadside drug test, and we're following the business process of whether it's positive, negative, whether they refuse to have the test taken, all those sorts of things, and push that back to our records management system. What we're introducing fairly soon though, or what we have as a pilot, which I discussed earlier today, is e-ticketing. So electronic ticketing for traffic infringements, or use a different language here, but basically committing traffic offences, talking on your mobile phone, those sorts of things. We don't use a printing solution in the cars. We're actually posting that infringement out at a later stage, and we're having that occur automatically through our transport and main road solution. So the officers don't have to print anything, they don't have to post anything, they simply submit at the end of the transaction with the offender, and the ticket is sent to them. In the next couple of months, we're going to offer email and MMS as a solution as well. If they'd like to receive it via email or MMS, they'll be able to receive it via that method. Still in pilot at the moment, we're doing about 15,000 of those a month, so we're really testing the system. Apps that we've got coming, which I spoke about this morning, was a missing person app, recording a person's missing at that location with the parents or guardian. So when we leave, that person's recorded as missing, and all officers within the Queensland Police Service know that person is missing, and that information's been provided. And then we've got other things which aren't so exciting, but traffic crash, recording that in the field, recording sudden deaths where someone has passed away suddenly. We spend a lot of time at the scene collecting a lot of information. If we can capture it all at that point in time, it makes a lot of sense for us. And other apps or other capabilities as we go forward into the new year. We've also got a dispatch app, which we'll be introducing in the near future. Still relying on radio for the actual issuing of jobs and doing jobs. Once the dispatch app comes in place in September, October, the officers will be able to go and select the jobs that they want to attend or that they're supposed to attend, show themselves proceeding, show themselves booking off, show themselves back on at the job, and then finalising that job. Basically like a courier or something like that, being able to complete all that without actually having to use voice for priority 3 and 4, low priority jobs. High priority jobs, where they are urgent jobs, 1 and 2 will still be by voice, but they'll receive the important information via the app as well. And it's quite powerful, they're able to see the resources that are around them and see the jobs that they've got to do. Normally Adam would talk to this one. I'll just leave the picture up there. For those that are technical in the room, they can work with that. But yeah, the important part for me is at this end here and at that end over there that we're getting that access to information. And we're also going outside to the internet and so forth to get information. That's all I need to understand in relation to that one. So I'll talk about that as we get to it. I'll go through to that. Just some usage. So high level usage and savings there. I won't talk to it over the top. What I'm trying to highlight here is we are really using the devices out in the field, and the officers are really using them. The take-up's fantastic. The searching of persons and vehicles, if you look at the volumes of those, that's quite high. We couldn't do that via radio. Those checks would not be done. Okay, so what do we have? Within Queensland Police Service, we're just about at the 5,400 iPad minis out in the field with frontline officers. They're all issued to the officers, set up, ready to go when they receive them. They're inside a life-proof case. They connect via 3 and 4G, so our telco, our primary telco, through their network, back through an APN. And they also, in the stations, we have government Wi-Fi, which allows the updating of apps and the updating of the iOS and so forth. They're secured by MobileIron. And MobileIron, combined with the Apple device and a hardening guide within Australia that's set up by Australian Signal Directorate, we're able to go and tick off and identify that we're able to store protected data on these devices, which allows our commissioner to simply sign off on it without any great concerns, and we know how to secure the devices, so it makes it a lot easier for us, and MobileIron help us with that. I spoke about it today at the keynote. It's not our core business in relation to mobility. Setting up the devices, shipping them, replacing them, when they get broken, having them replaced for the officers, providing that first level and second level of support about unlocking the devices, passcodes, if they initially lose it, finding it again, those sorts of things. We've reached out to our partners or our telco to bring in partners to do that work for us. That allows us or frees us up to focus on what we should be doing, our core business. What apps should we build? What capabilities should we build? And we don't need to have so many people involved in the support solution. We can have more out in the field working with the community. App development. We've reached out to industry, identified an app development partner to build the apps for us. And when you see these apps, you'll see that we definitely have worked an app development partner. I've had the opportunity within Australia to see what other law enforcement agencies do, and also internationally. And as you all know and have heard, most law enforcement anyway, and a lot of industry goes and grabs a desktop and tries to squeeze it on that screen. And it's a very poor experience. You'll see with us that we haven't done that. We've moved right away from that because we've let the app developers come to us and tell us how we can do our business or our business processes. Again, I'll repeat, we go to them, we say, as an officer, I want to, and they come back with a solution for us. So the question was about how long the development took. We started off with the HTML5 app, which is about a 3-month turnaround to develop what we want and deliver it. We've moved to native since then. We were going to be agnostic in the early days. We were going to stand up for agnostic. We didn't in the end. We went native, and everything's simpler for us. So depending on the capabilities, some capabilities take 6 weeks to deliver, some take 3 months to deliver. Some of them are far more complex. The app development side isn't the complex bit, it's the integration in the back end that usually takes the most amount of time. The learnings I spoke about, and that is, do what you're good at and let other people that are good at their things, MobileIron, app developers, do their components. And don't start with the biggest big bang project that you can have. Don't try and deliver everything at once. Work on a minimal viable product that's going to deliver a part of the business you want, and then have a roadmap to continue to improve that. What that allows you to do also is you can change direction if you're getting feedback from your users about which direction you should take or what's more of a priority, and you can focus on that once you're out in the field and you're live. That's been a big learning for us. Okay, over to the demonstration for Adam. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
What about now? Yay, look at that. All right, so I get to do the fun bit. So this is where we're going to just go through the app. It's going to be similar to what I did the presentation this morning, but it's going to be a little bit slower and actually go into details that we discovered as we went along through this process. So we don't have one app to rule them all. From a technical perspective, that was absolutely going to kill me as being the technical manager on the project, trying to make sure that those things happen. From our perspective, we have 5 bespoke apps, and we use app groups and name pasteboards, for those technical in the room, to be able to pass data between those apps. So our app integration strategy is actually quite prevalent to make sure that the officer experience isn't clumsy, it's something that is very fluid, but also something that they can do very quickly. So we have a dummy app that we're using, and we have officers sign in and do all that kind of cool stuff. Normal terms and conditions that you'd expect to see for an officer. But straight away what we do is, because officers don't read emails, they don't do things that you necessarily want them to read when you send it to them, and it's like that in every industry usually, we hit them straight away every month when we do a release with what's new, what's coming, what's something that they need to be aware of for that release. So yes, we did plagiarize a lot from other companies and stuff that do that, but it's a very powerful tool to make sure that you get your message out there with that release. So this is what we call QLite. So QLite is our searching app, and this is the core app that most officers start with. So from here, they're trying to identify the risk to themselves and the risk to the community if they search for a person or for a vehicle or for an organisation, a location or a vessel or anything like that. But we have some things that we've done for usability. So if I triple tap the top bar, for instance, that's going to go to day-night mode. Very interesting when you're at 2 a.m. on the side of the road. You don't want to have that iPad just blaring in your eyes like this one is mine. But from that perspective, it's around making sure that they can read it and understand it. We can also do things like triple tap on the vehicle, and I can switch over to a vessel search. So I don't have to worry about those types of things. And when I search for a person, I don't have to have 15 fields to fill out about their name and date of birth and Christian name or given name and those types of things. I can just search on it in one string, make it easier for us. So the scenario I'm going to take you through is intercepting a vehicle. So I have a few pre-canned searches that I've done down the side here. And from here, we'll dismiss the safety warning. So from here, I've searched 3 systems automatically. I've searched our QPrime records management system, which is for Queensland information about our interceptions with that person and flags and cautions. TMR, which is our transport and main roads, our licensing, our DMV equivalent. And then our NEVDA system, which is our national system, that be able to search on national vehicles and those types of things. We actually broke our national system when we went live. It's an old message queue system from about 1996. We were doing 6 requests every second, and they could only handle 1 request every 6 seconds. So absolutely the volume of what we were doing is quite high. But what we've shown is within the first 3 seconds of being able to do a search, an officer knows to deal with this differently. The colour of the vehicle represents the alert that's on that vehicle, and in this instance it's a traffic related issue, and the border represents something associated with this vehicle, whether that be a person or an organisation, has a high level alert. So straight away the officer knows that he has to do something differently rather than digging through details or reading a PDF or doing this over the radio. So if I click on the QPrime information, I'm going to start to get some information down. And it's already done those searches across the other systems up the top. So I can jump between each of those different systems that are available to me. Some we own, some we don't, and we're able to do that. I can jump down and see their alerts. I can also see why the associates and what caused that red border to appear. And in this instance, it's a male driving this vehicle, so the officer's going, okay, I might have to look at that. I can now click on that person. And from a usability point of view, I've typed in 6 characters. I haven't typed in another thing. I'm using links within the systems to be able to make sure that this data is retrieved. So from here I can do things like view their descriptions. So as a person changes over time, we take photos. It also brings that back. See their aliases they've given us, some addresses they might have given us, those types of things. Alerts. So I don't know if any of you have been pulled over recently, but sometimes what happens in policing is that if someone doesn't expire that alert, what happens is you get pulled over constantly. And as a member of the public, that can be quite annoying. We had an example in Townsville, which is a town far north of Queensland, where a person we intercepted had bought unbeknownst to him, a drug dealer's car, and it had flags all over it. So the poor guy kept getting pulled over and over again until one of the officers with our devices picked it up, because what he can do is actually expire that on the side of the road. He didn't have to write it down on a piece of paper, go back to the office and expire it. We expired that flag and said, yep, the owner's changed, thanks very much. We don't have to worry about those things. So really, really good thing for serving the community better. We can also add flags. So if we saw drugs and if we saw an issue with this car or something that an officer needed to be aware of, we can put that on the system straight away. And all officers that searched on that vehicle would get that information. Domestic violence is very prevalent in Queensland. So with the domestic violence, we can bring back all the details of that person and what are their domestic violence issues that might have been recorded. So I can jump into those. I can have a look at the status. I can bring back the person who is the aggrieved and the respondent. But I can also bring back the actual court document stamped by our court that's showing them the conditions. So being able to do that type of information. Associates, again, nothing serious there. And then our interactions that have been recorded with them. So we're able to jump in and see those details. So as I mentioned in the keynote, we have the concept of a shopping cart that we've called an action list. So from here, I'm going to try and collect these entities that I've identified and actually then put them into my action list. But what it's done is it's prompted me, and it said that this person's description is actually older than 60 days. So the system can allow you to then take a new picture, put in some new descriptions of that thing, whatever it may be, their tattoo, and they're actually able to then record that as part of the action submission. So we update our system straight away. I can go back to our vehicle, I can collect that into my shopping cart as well, and I'm going to click on that action list down the bottom. And as I mentioned, we flip the UI, and so this is from now we're going to go into a different app, but we're going to identify what the officer can and can't do. So for instance, if I didn't have a person selected, I can't do certain actions. So I can't give a car an infringement, I can only give a person an infringement. So from here, we can decide what we're going to do. So one of the things we have that we showed was the infringement notice. So I'm just clicked on, and now I've gone into a second app. But the user experience is still the same. It's not something new, it's not something different. So down the left-hand side, as I mentioned, it's around what does that mean for the officer, and why hasn't it gone green, and why do I need to submit something? So as we go down, it'll turn green, and as we identify the mandatory fields that are required. So for instance, this person was the driver. I want to double check that that's the right car I brought across, because I might have multiple entities I'm dealing with. Date and time. We haven't changed anything that you'd expect to see in an Apple device. It's all normal, intuitive things. It's not creating a new way of doing things. Location. It's really important in Queensland that we always maintain, we link everything back to the same location over and over again. What we had in offices is that they were just forcing in new addresses every time they'd create something because they couldn't be bothered linking it. So now they can actually link it back to the right address. So if the offence happened on the corner back there, I can click on that and that'll be the offence location linked into our back-end system. You'll also notice we have most used and most recent. Apparently police don't have favourites when issuing tickets, but that's what we weren't allowed to call it. But we have most used. So if they're doing static enforcement and those types of things, they can just reuse the same address over and over again rather than finding it or searching for it. Offences. At this point, an officer would pull out a PDF document that they either might have sent to their personal phone, which is against our policy, or they might have printed out, which is about this thick, and it would be of a 7,000 offence codes that they would have to try and identify which it would be. So from here, again, we have the same concept of most used and most recent and those types of things, but an officer is able to now do a keyword search. And as he types or she types, I can actually find them. So in Queensland, there's actually 6 related to mobile phone use. And depending on who you are and what license you have and all sorts of different things, it can mean a different amount and a different penalty. Officer can select it. He can select multiple. If he stuffs up, he can change it and delete it. But from there, we can say, yep, he's going to now get a lovely $353 fine. Not much in US dollars, but in Australian it's okay. It's a bit different at the moment. So from here, what we're now doing is defining what the service. So how is this person on the side of the road, the customer or offender, going to actually get? And in this respect, what we're also doing is, in a future release, is also talking about information sheets. People who do not have the English as their first language. So we can actually identify that they speak Mandarin or they speak Spanish or something like that, and give them an information sheet when we submit that to them so they can actually understand what they're getting. So it allows us to do some things like that to make it a little bit easier to make people pay fines, basically. So from here, I've taken the data I have. I can now say I'm going to post it to that person. Assisting officer, if I'm working in a crew, I can say Gavin was working with me today and I'm able to then add him to the job so he doesn't have to think about it later. That then persists for your shift, so for that same 8-hour period that you're working with that person. Notes and photos. So this is where we're going to collect the evidence about that issue. So it's about saying, well, what are the things that they need to be able to capture? So as I showed you at the keynote, we can do things like add from the camera roll and sketches, and Gavin's favourite photo, which is this guy. So from this perspective, we can now capture the bald tyre, we can capture the incorrect vehicle, whatever it may be, and be able to submit that. Summary notes. Officers what we were finding was writing the same 10 questions over and over again when they interacted with a person from the community. So what we did is actually develop them little templates. So they now can actually create their own templates if they don't like the ones that we've already pre-populated for them, or if they use that one, they can now edit it. And so they can go through that process and just keep editing that as they need to and create a new template. I can also link it to existing occurrences, I can give it an operation name, and I can mark that I've done a body-worn video capture of this interaction as well. So that'll mark in our system that there is evidence in our body-worn video camera section that they're for this interaction. But if I had added a speeding offence or something like that, I'd also be able to then make sure that I recorded the speeding offence details and those types of things. But as you can see, it's all green. So I've now done my mandatory fields, I've done the things I need to do. It won't submit in our dummy system, but what it'll do is now upload those photos, give the officer the prompt. It's also updated their traffic history in our Transport and Main Roads Authority. It's also captured that as an intelligence in our back-end system, which we've never had before. And if this person got pulled up around the corner for the same offence, we'd be able to understand what that is by that other officer and be able to see that straight away. I won't go through it, but what I just want to show you is that if I selected these people again and say I had a third person in the vehicle and I wanted to record them as being together at this same place and time, if I was doing an intelligence report, it's the same look and feel, but a different app. So the officer here doesn't have to know that he's doing a street check, he's just following the process as they go down. So it makes life a lot easier for us when we're doing OCM and those types of things. But that's all we had to show you quickly. I know we're almost out of time and we've got a couple of minutes of questions if need be, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Questions?
Hold on. Yes.
Do you also consider not using an iPad or something like a smartphone to do the same task?
We actually made the decision originally when the iPhone 6 hadn't come out. And so we either had the iPhone 5S, the iPad mini, or the big iPad Air, I think it was at the time. When we looked at it officers from a usability point of view, it was actually better for them to have the bigger form factor. It allowed them to use their thumbs, have it in those kinds of situations. And we actually bought 3,000 pairs of what we call iPants that are slightly big enough to fit the iPad mini with the case and everything into their pockets. So they can carry it on them and they can run around in their cargo pants and those types of things. But what we have found is that the usability in such a small form factor is actually difficult on the side of the road when there's other operational things you have to be looking at. So it gives them a lot more ease of use and it's a little bit easier for them. But that was where we landed, but time will tell if we decide to change. Yep. Well done.
Two quick questions.
Yep.
The database search that hits the Division Motor Vehicles for driver's license photos, and then as well the criminal booking photos in the search.
Yep.
Okay. Second thing, would your detention officers be similar detectives, or is this primarily designed for that officer on the beat?
It's primarily designed for frontline police, so what we call blue shirts in Australia, or short sleeves, because it's quite comfortable, the climate in Queensland. But we do have a number of investigative areas that do have them, and some specialist areas as well who are out in the field. It's mainly those that are face-to-face with the community on a day-to-day basis.
Could you elaborate on the resistance that you face with your older officers versus your younger officers when you roll this out?
It's surprisingly, because it's a simple business process that we've captured here, we've had very little resistance. Having said that, we've got about 7,200 frontline police, and we've only got 5,400 devices. So we've got enough of a generation there that if someone doesn't really want one, they'll reallocate it to someone who does. So we haven't seen a lot of resistance so far. Anecdotally, we did a ride-along in one of our communities with a traffic officer who's got 4 years before he retires. And as we went along, he said, I'm happy to use the apps, but I don't want to use any of the other functionality. I don't want to reach back in and find out more information, service manuals and so forth. It's too hard, I'm not interested. And we did a ride-along for a couple of hours with him, went back to the station, and about 30 minutes later, he's standing behind us, and I thought he might want to go back out on the road again. We were talking to one of our super users, our support people, and he's come up and he said, do you mind setting me up with all that other stuff that I can have? Because I think I really do want it. So we're getting that buy-in and that support because it's making operational sense. It's not an impost to them. It's something that improves their ability to do their job. And even in all age groups.
And we have 40 super users across the state in various different roles and different areas that we bring in. We invest in them and so bring them down into Brisbane, our main city, and actually tell them what's happening, give them some guidance, and also give them some material so that they can talk with their crew and talk with their other people about what's good and what's working and how to fix things locally. It's a lot easier to talk to a mate that you've got next door than try and ring a service desk and get someone to try and talk you through it. So we've been able to use a couple of ways to try and make sure that user adoption is something that's easy for people to get support and those types of things.
And just to go back to answer your question too, not just our state systems, we reach out to our national systems as well. So each state's have one consolidated transport with registration and driver's license. We reach out to that, and also persons and vehicles of interest nationally as well.
Sorry, next question.
So a great app. My question is on the iPads themselves. What kind of failure rate, if any, do you see for the iPads minis?
So in regards to breakages, we probably break up to about 10 a month on average. So with a fleet of 5,400, it's actually not a big percentage we're dealing with. We do about 110 hot swaps a month. So things that something's misconfigured and gone wrong, the officer has typed in his passcode wrong too many times and it's wiped it, which is actually our biggest issue in regards to it. They just won't ring the service desk and go, I can remotely unlock this. But with regards to breakages, it's very, very little. And in regards to lost devices, we may have one every month on average, roughly.
Except for last month, we've had 4.
We had 4, but those things happen. But 90% of the time they ring up, we actually get reported about 5, but actually officially lose about 1 a month because, we use MobileIron with our service desk to say, well, it's actually here. Oh, it's in the wife's car. I'll go and get it. Because that's just the stuff that they're getting. So we're using the tools as much as we can, but surprisingly the numbers are quite low, and we attribute that to individual issue. So we don't actually have pools of devices or anything like that because our history and our understanding of that type of scenario means that they're basically not looked after. They're just thrown in. If they're lost, who cares? If they're broken, who cares? Until someone complains enough to get more devices. But because they're individual issue, the officers actually take care of them and actually owning these things. So it makes it a big difference, that's for sure.
Last month, we probably under warranty, we had about 3 come back under warranty. I think that's about average. We get a report each month. And it's not on my radar because the numbers are so low as a concern.
Yeah. Sorry? If there was any more? One more?
Hey guys, great app, and just wondering if you guys have actually thought about facial recognition being built into the app. a way in which you can actually scan the person's. It's better user experience for the officers going forward.
Yeah, we had an app developing company called Morpho that are based out of France in regards to looking at facial recognition and those types of things. Unfortunately, iPads don't have lights on them, and they're very poor when you put them in lights without any lighting or anything like that. And so, having a light and trying to do that. Our philosophy in regards to facial recognition and bio and all those types of things has really been around letting the industry get better. So for us, it's not about trying to fix it now ourselves and do those types of things. If it doesn't work for us right now because the technology is just not there yet or the programming is just not there yet, wait until the technology catches up. We had another example where they've been able to take fingerprints from a person by using the camera and just go click and that's it. And it's been able to identify your whirl on your fingerprint and all those types of things. But in operational scenarios, it just doesn't make sense because you have to make sure that there's the right lighting and the right conditions. And if you're in the basement of a nightclub, it doesn't really work and those types of things. And then Gavin can probably talk to this a bit better than I can, but there's a lot of legislation and privacy and those types of things as well that we have to make sure that we've got the legislative, power to be able to collect these things that we may not necessarily have.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
generally we don't have the power out in the field to do that. Once we've arrested somebody, yes, we can. We can do a live scan on their handprints, their fingerprints, and we could also start using facial recognition. So we do that more back in the office than you would do out in the field. Yeah.
Okay, with that, we'll end the session. I know you guys, if you have more questions,
Yeah,
they're
we're here.
going to be
Absolutely.
around. And they're going to doing the session again, so if you want to hear again, you can continue to reserve.
We're going to flip
Yeah.
it around though.
Yeah, we're not that good. It's all right.
Right, be sure to rate the session and in the Mobile First app. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you everyone.